You know what I mean? It was like, and this one set in particular stands out. I was telling you at High Sierra Music Festival, it was like a late afternoon, sunset-y kind of vibe, and it was this big, beautiful field, and it was packed full of people, and we decided, fuck it. We played late night the night before, and we didn't have like the greatest set, so we really wanted to like have a wonderful set in this beautiful environment. So we all kind of, you know, took a little bit of, I was telling you about this goo, you know, it's like this concentrate, and we all took a little bit of that. And I just remember by the second song, my face hurt from smiling so much. I mean, it was like, I was just elated.
Welcome to Instrumental Breakthroughs. I'm your host, Daniel Shankin. Instrumental Breakthroughs is a project of Tam Integration, which offers psychedelic preparation and integration coaching virtually all over the world. And we are super pleased to feature the psychedelic origin story of your favorite rock and roll superheroes. In this case, we have Danny Mayer, who is the guitarist of Soul Kitchen. In the past, he's played with Eric Krasno. He's played, how many times have you played Terrapin?
I think, well, 2 or 3 times, but one of the times it was multiple times.
Got it.
It was like we did a brunch and the opening set and then the real set. I did like a few things.
Right. You're popular on Jam Cruise?
Yeah.
And we're old friends. And so I'm just really grateful and honored that you agreed to come and play with us today.
Of course, man. It's great to see you.
Indeed. And so the theme, we talked about this a little bit. The theme of the show is, how do psychedelics influence creativity? And how does creativity help to integrate the psychedelic experience?
Yeah. Such a loaded subject there.
It's a loaded subject, but the thing about it is, you know, as more and more people learn that there are serious benefits, like real benefits, that it's sort of incumbent upon the brave, that's you're the brave, to share their stories in order to destigmatize.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that people know it's like, oh, that these things create meaning, and they support the process in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. There was an entire movement, musical, artistic movement, consciousness movement inspired by psychedelics. You know what I mean? It clearly changed the world. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine where we'd be without them. You know, I feel like it's really just, you know, there's obviously some dark, scary aspects to it too, but you know what I mean? It's like,
there are,
but that's us, you know, the dark, scary aspects of it are just where we're willing to go in our minds, or what our minds do to us, you know?
Right. A lot of that is more revelation than it is causation.
Yes, exactly. That's well said. Exactly.
And so your history started sort of young, right? You were seeing the Dead at 14.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, you know, I grew up in a pretty open-minded household. You know, my parents were pretty, like, I wouldn't necessarily call them hippies, but they really kind of held these hippie ideals. You know what I mean? My mom was just so loving and supportive, and like anything I was into, like when I wanted to start playing guitar, she immediately was like, let's get this kid a guitar. Let's put a guitar in his hands. Let's get him lessons. Let's start. She kind of fueled the actual like logistical doing action aspects of putting a guitar in my hands and finding me a guitar teacher when I was, you know, around 12 or 13 years old. My dad was a bit more instrumental in the more like, listen to this guy, listen to this band, check this music out. Oh, if you're into this, you might as well also listen to this. And, you know, I think most
use your algorithm.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I think most parents, probably wouldn't be cool sending their, I saw the Grateful Dead 3 nights in a row when I had just turned 14, like literally like the week before had turned 14. So I was a very fresh new 14-year-old. And I really don't, I have a 14-year-old right now, and I don't think I'd send him to 3 nights to see the Grateful Dead, with his older sister. I went to see the first night with my dad and my older brother. The next night, I was like, I have to go back. And my older brother took me again. And then he had to leave to go back to college, I think. He's 7 years older than me. And so I hitched a ride with like one of his friends to see the third night. And
so now you're hitchhiking.
I do remember, and now I'm hitchhiking. Exactly. And I do remember my parents like having this I have this very distinct memory of talking to my parents about that third night. And clearly they knew I was consuming tremendous amounts of psychedelics at that young age. I remember just refusing to take no for an answer. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care what you say. I'm going to this third night of the Grateful Dead. You can say no all you want. I'm going to get there whether you like it or not. And eventually they kind of caved and were like, okay, this is obviously something you're really, really into. And, when are you going to get to do this again? So go for it. I ended up going with my older brother's friend, and I have definitely not been the same since. That is for sure.
Right. Well, and that's an interesting thing, because sometimes you hear stories about people who lived their whole life and then had a psychedelic experience and it changed. But when you're 14, right, it's like, that's your whole adulthood.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it created a really nice foundation, well, first of all, I grew up in South Florida. I was literally the only hippie kid. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know anybody else wearing tie-dyes or had long hair or was like into Buddhism or music. You know what I mean? I knew like there was a couple other guitar players, but they were more into like Nirvana and Pearl Jams, which I also loved at the time too. But I was definitely on like Zeppelin and Hendrix and the Grateful Dead and the Beatles, like 60s music, and psychedelic music. And it was really all through music and like listening to that type of stuff and kind of learning about that period of time that just piqued my interest and really made me feel like, I remember saying, it's so cliche, but I remember saying for years, like I was born in the wrong, era. Like I still, feel such a deep kind of connection to that time period and that music and those kind of mind expanding experiences that were happening back then. But my point here is it really laid a foundation for me. Like growing up in Florida, I didn't see that world at all. I knew it existed, but I thought it was a thing of the past. I was like trying to relive it in my own imagination on a daily basis. So when I saw with my own eyes that this music still exists and was, it was 1994, they weren't necessarily at their peak, but it was this smaller arena and it was just filled with love, man. I mean, it was so tangible. Everyone was so into it, into the, like functioning on the same frequency. I remember seeing some weird dark things and people so spun out they couldn't move. And, there was like some weirdness too, but it was mostly like 95% of my experience over these 3 nights were just like everyone supporting each other and trying to get each other into the show and get tickets and talking about, it was just such a cultural, obviously, deep cultural experience that I just didn't think existed anymore. So seeing 3 nights of it and consuming, psychedelics over the course of those 3 nights and steeping myself kind of in that energy, I just couldn't really deal with like normal life again after that. And it had positive and negatives, you know what I mean? Like I didn't want to go back to school. I wanted to give away everything I owned and just follow the Grateful Dead until I couldn't anymore, and at that point, to me, it was about the music, but it was also just that I felt this sense of community that I've never experienced before that. I was always like the outsider and the kid who, like, yeah, I was an outsider. I was the hippie kid, not like in a group of hippie kids. So it was a very welcoming experience.
So what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is, and I get this feeling of being born in the wrong era.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm curious if that drove you to sort of use your music to sort of recreate that, or to kind of continue that feeling of love and support into where we're living today.
I mean, it's 100%. Like, to me, that's kind of the goal, is I'm not trying to be the Grateful Dead or have like anything like that, but it's my own kind of like version of that. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it, but it definitely, that communal live show experience, like feeling the energy in a room, when things are good and everyone knows things are good and all the cylinders are firing. It's, even without any sort of psychedelic experience, it's a psychedelic experience. You can really feel that connection and getting that energy back from the audience and being able to reciprocate it. And it's like, there's no better analogy than like wind in the sails. You know what I mean? It's like when you feel that wind in the sails and you feel that push, and like you can do things that you would never be able to do because you have all that energy behind you, all that like support and attention and focus. And so you can and there's adrenaline and there's other chemicals being released in the brain, but yeah, the goal is definitely to fill a room with as much love as possible, for sure.
Great. And so you were telling me the other day about sort of how Star Kitchen.
I was just going to ask Star Kitchen.
Jeez, apologies.
Soul Kitchen is a Doors song, and it's so easy. It's so close.
About how you guys sort of congealed as a band, how you guys sort of discovered your sound on Psilocybin, I believe.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. It's a really funny band in the sense that we're all coming from pretty different places musically. And, much like kind of the Grateful Dead, everyone was kind of like coming from these different schools of thought. And, but there, it took us a while to kind of like, because the intention was to start out as like a funk band, but to extend these jams and to whatever happens, kind of longer musical experiences, but based off of like a James Brown tune instead of a folky kind of Grateful Dead vibe. It was more like funk oriented. So, drummer is this unbelievable drummer. His name is Marlon Lewis. He's he's like a church guy. He plays with like John Legend and Lauryn Hill, and he's just kind of like he's got chops like you wouldn't believe. And Mark Brownstein's bass player for the Disco Biscuits. He's been doing that for 26 years or however long that band's been around. And that's a very electronic kind of jamtronica is what they call it. And, and then Rob, the keyboard player, is like coming from kind of a more classical background, but he played in funk bands all throughout college. And so me and Rob kind of like were a bit more in line in terms of like our musical influences and stuff like that. But my point here is that it took a while, kind of like we all loved playing together, and we had a vibe right away. The second we all kind of got in the room, it was like, oh, this is going to be fun. We all knew it was going to be fun. But about a year into it, we started kind of incorporating, what'd you call it, a museum dose? Not really a microdose, but not really like a full-blown experience.
Sort of, like the amount that would be good to walk around a museum or to kind of go to a show and know that you're not going to lose your mind too much, but it's going to, you know, make the sound pop.
Exactly. So making the sound pop as a musician is like the best. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like when things really sound good on stage and then you just introduce that little bit of kind of mind expansion. And I guess the common thing here that I haven't touched on yet is improvisation. You know, like you start off playing a song and then it gets to a point where we abandon ship and we're floating, and whatever happens, you know, a big shark could swim by, you know what I mean? Or a beautiful rainbow could appear, or the possibilities are endless, but we are not on the boat anymore. We are not on the boat of that song. There is no safety net. Nobody knows what's going to happen. If you repeat something maybe more than once, somebody will latch on to it and you can create this whole new thing out of this idea that you repeated a few times. Sometimes that doesn't happen at all. But I think what I really keep trying to get at here is the introduction of small doses of psilocybin, I think, was this really great equalizer. It didn't matter where each of us were coming from musically. Everyone's kind of like agendas of what we wanted it to be or how we felt like it should be just naturally kind of dissolved. And what was left was this very, to me, felt like a very unifying, like beautiful experience where we were all just smiling ear to ear. You know what I mean? It was like, and this one set in particular stands out. I was telling you at High Sierra Music Festival, it was like a late afternoon, sunset-y kind of vibe, and it was this big, beautiful field, and it was packed full of people, and we decided, fuck it. We played late night the night before, and we didn't have like the greatest set, so we really wanted to like have a wonderful set in this beautiful environment. So we all kind of, you know, took a little bit of, I was telling you about this goo, you know, it's like this concentrate, and we all took a little bit of that. And I just remember by the second song, my face hurt from smiling so much. I mean, it was like, I was just elated, and I would look around and everyone in the band was just lit up and smiling ear to ear. And it was one of those kind of feelings where you could do no wrong. And it was just like everything was clicking. It was like, oh, let's try a backflip. Oh my God, I landed the backflip. Let's try a double backflip. Holy shit, I landed the double backflip. Let's jump up. You know what I mean? It was like you could try anything, and there was so much support there that it all just, everything landed, you know? And that really opened up, I think, a door into a world beyond individual influences, individual agendas, individual attachments to how, like I was saying, we all thought things should be or shouldn't be, or all of that inner chatter was just gone, and we were left with what it actually was, which was great music, you know? And so it became a little bit of a tradition to eat a little bit of that before every show for a few months there. And in that few months, we really kind of came into our sound.
Now, how do you guys deal with, you just described everything being awesome.
Yeah.
Does conflict ever arise?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So
I think you can't have the awesome without a little bit of the tension. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully enough, you know, like, I don't think any of us eat enough of it for things to get truly weird.
Okay.
You know what I mean? There's like this safety kind of dose, you know what I mean? Where it's like, you know, you're not going to go past a certain point. But there's been a couple nights where, I mean, at least me personally, I feel like, whoa, I'm a little too high right now. And what happens in those moments for me is this feeling of disconnect instead of ultra connection. It's like I'm having a hard time. Sometimes I have a hard time, like, actually, like, I start thinking, oh my God, I'm high. What am I doing? And oh my God, is this, it's like this element of panic is floating around back there somewhere. And then the process becomes working through that panic while you're on stage, trying to be open. It's not even panic, like, in terms of like an anxiety thing. It's just like this, these kind of like, oh shit, kind of voices in your head, like, oh God, I'm on stage and I'm pretty high and I don't really want to get this high. And I don't know, my guitar feels weird in my hands and things feel weird. And then my shirt's a little too tight. You know what I mean? It's like the lights are crazy and whatever. And so then it becomes about working through that more than being in the moment. And I feel like that can create a little bit of tension,
Right. A little bit of tension. And so,
which is not necessarily a bad thing.
So what would you say is sort of like, so as the band grows, like, what's the growth edge for the band, psychedelically speaking or not? It's like as you've told us this really nice story about how the band has sort of kind of found this flow, but like, what is it looking for now?
Well, I mean, the craziest thing happened in the sense that the world of music essentially stopped existing. The world of live shows kind of stopped existing. So right when it was really starting to feel like we were just gelling, you know what I mean? And we had a few really great shows booked, and we were supposed to go to Iceland, and, we were like going to do all this really great shit. And so it's really hard to answer that question now because, in a sense, nothing exists now. You know what I mean? The band, like, we'll do like a video every once in a while, or like, but we haven't been in the same room. And man, I can't even remember the last gig we played. I literally can't even remember. It was Colorado, actually, February. We haven't been in the same room since early February. So, it's hard. That's a hard question to answer. We might not be able to play for another year. So I have no idea, man.
So what does that mean for you as a musician to kind of be stuck in the house?
There's two sides to the coin for me. I don't think I would have ever slowed down this much for this long to learn who I was as a person without being able to play live. I'm not much of a studio guy. I'm not much of I don't like edit videos. I didn't even, I always knew people with recording studios, so I would go record albums or songs that I wrote with other people, but I've never sat in my house and recorded myself. And my whole career has been kind of focused on live shows, performing live and with a band and for people, even if it's 20 people or 2,000 people, doesn't really matter much to me because that's really, truly what I love to do. But removing that has forced me to find other ways of creativity. And one of the beautiful things that I've had to do is learn how to record in my house. And, it's something I've wanted to do for years and just have never really had the time or the need, I never really needed to. I could always go to my friend's spot, or I could always hit up this person you know what I mean? And I loved that communal aspect of it always, but it's forced me to learn how to record on my own, which has been really fun and really kind of eye-opening. I'm like, oh, I do this thing that's not very good. I should probably not do that. Or, oh my God, this thing I thought wasn't very good sounds actually amazing when I listen back to it. Or, you know what I mean? It's been very educational to be able to record myself. But man, I really miss playing shows. I really miss hanging out with my friends and making music. To me, that's it's the best thing in the world. You know what I mean? It's like, I get that sense of community. I get that sense of belonging, of that, it's my therapy. It's my it's like I worked through all the shit in my head on my guitar in front of an audience, being able to play loud and aggressive or soft and sweet or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like there's all these different aspects to playing a live show that and then you get that adrenaline hit and you get all these kind of like, you know, other things happening in there that just don't happen at home, no matter what you're doing. And so that's the negative side of the coin. The positive side of the coin, like I was saying, is the recording stuff, being able to make these cool little videos with this app on my phone and kind of finding more my voice individually. Like, who am I as a musician? Not like, how do I fit into this band, or how do I fit into this situation, or, you know, what am I bringing to the table with all of these other energies? It's like, what am I going to do when it's just me? And it's been really cool to find that. I think I'm just starting to like really find this sound.
What is something new that you've discovered about you as a musician?
It's a really great question, man. I think the main thing is I really love recording. I really love being able to like sit there and record and harmonize, you know, come up with these simple I think what I've realized is I really love these simple singable melodies on the guitar. And as impressive as it is to listen to somebody who's got all this facility and all these chops and can play so much fast, crazy stuff, I think for me, what really does it is these kind of simple melodies that connect emotionally, something that someone could sing, or an idea that would get stuck in someone's head, you know. And I've been able to kind of like find ways of doing that just on my own, rather than like these brief passing moments in jams with bands where I'm like, oh, that 30 seconds right there is great. I can now take that 30 seconds intentionally, right, and turn it into something that I love, you know?
You know, when you said that, I think of, you ever listen to Fallout from the Fill Zone?
Mm-hmm.
There's that,
the Jackaroo?
It's not the Jackaroo.
Jackaroo, and that's killing.
Oh, actually, maybe it's not. Maybe it's like a hard to handle from like Los Angeles, 1971.
Okay.
And you sort of get the feeling, and like people down there are there like clapping, sort of a 4/4, you know, and then they just do this thing that like you could tell like nobody had ever heard anything like that before. Right. Know? And it is like this, it's about 45 seconds of just like this amazing emotional swell. And they kind of don't want it to end.
Yeah.
And then they go back into the verse, you know?
Right.
But I hear that a lot. People talking about the difference between like the mechanical mastery of the instrument, and sure, like I can, you know, finger pick really fast, or, you know, play a lot of notes, but that it's a totally different thing to do something really evocative for somebody's heart.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, that's what I want. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather hear somebody play 3 notes with emotion than a million notes out of just physical ability. You know what I mean? And I know a few musicians who are like this. I know a few non-musicians who are like this, but I think it's pretty obvious, you know, no matter where in the world, whether it's reggae or African music or Indian music or rock and roll or any jazz, whatever it is, I think it's pretty clear when someone's playing from a truly inspired kind of like emotional place and evoking some sort of like channeling some sort of thing that's greater and beyond them, instead of this ego-driven, which again, like when I say ego-driven, I don't necessarily mean that in a negative way. I think there's a place for all of it, but a lot of people have this look at me, say, I'm the rock star, look at me, look what I can do. And to me, that turns me off immediately. No matter how good you are, no matter how much time you've spent practicing, those kind of mechanical exercises don't mean much to me emotionally and don't light up my brain and my heart like somebody sitting there doing one simple thing with, and really putting themselves in it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's just.
You remind me, I think, in the business world, they talk about different types of leadership. And, one of them is service leadership.
Oh, yeah.
Because like if you're the band leader, like you're leading everybody, there's 1,000 people, a couple thousand people there, and you're leading them, but it's for them.
Right.
It's in service to like their experience.
Yeah, it's a cool way of thinking about it. I mean, the best experiences to me, at least from being in an audience and being on stage, is when it seems to transcend all of that. It seems to kind of like, there is no leader. We're all in this thing together. And it's just a big, I keep referring to like a boat, you know what I mean? Like, right. It's like we're all in this boat together and we're bobbing around in the ocean and everyone's kind of just we're all existing in this very, in the moment, amazing kind of thing.
And so what's the water in this metaphor?
The water in this metaphor, I don't know, man. Just energy, just this kind of like, just the energy. And it's just kind of, sometimes the energy is a little tumultuous and choppy. The waves are, kind of choppy, and other times it's real calm and clear. And other times there's these really steady waves that you can actually like work with, and
right.
It's I think the goal for me is to just stop judging whatever it is. You know what I mean? And I do feel like that's kind of something that the right dose of certain psychedelics will help with. Just that judgmental mind just kind of turns the volume down on that a little bit.
Right. Do you ever argue with it, the judgmental mind?
Oh, yeah. Like
does
every
it ever
day.
Get louder? Does psychedelics ever make it get louder?
Sometimes, yeah. I guess that's kind of what I meant by the tension. You know what I mean? When you were asking me, that's exactly what I meant. Is like that judgmental mind of like, oh God, I'm here doing this thing. I'm in this kind of state. It's like, get rid of. The goal is
right. Well, everybody is actually looking at you. Because I have this experience. I argue with my judgmental mind a lot, where they're like, "This person doesn't like you, and you did that dumb thing, and that was stupid." But usually when that's happening, like I'm just sitting there, I'm like sitting reading a book or something, and it comes up, or in meditation. It must be a totally different experience with all eyes on you.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. I tend to. I've noticed this in the last, with Star Kitchen, there's nights where I kind of don't even notice the eyes on any of us. I kind of am like looking at other band members, trying to like really lock in and feel, that connection with them, hoping that it translates to whoever's watching out there. But then there's other nights where I'm like, these dudes are in my peripheral and I'm just fully like focused on what's happening in the room, and they're both kind of beautiful experiences in their own way, but it's definitely, none of it's consistent, and that is the one thing I would say.
I think I heard a story that sometimes Jerry would just pick one guy out of the crowd and like try and freak him out.
Right.
Like, how do I make that guy have the best possible experience right now?
Totally. I mean, that's all you had to do was make eye contact, I think, when, on that level, that was a situation where all eyes most definitely were on him. I feel like a lot of times, that's a kind of a different level of, that I've never experienced, of just like stardom and like admiration and like people feeling like he's a religious figure, you know what I mean? And like all this really amazing stuff that he hated, but you
should totally be a religious figure.
I've considered it. I declined the invitation to be any sort of religious anything.
I once had, this was sort of a psychedelic experience of mine. I think I was at like Rat Dog at like the Beacon or something like that. And there was a bunch of us, and we all had stickers. And we were for this other project we were doing. We just all, and we were like, everybody was putting stickers everywhere.
Yeah.
And they caught me and threw me out. And I ended up I ended up running into just some musicians who were like, oh, why don't you just come to our studio? We have studio time. Just come hang out with us while we play. And so, I mean, you know, and I don't know who they were now, you know, it's like maybe they're
still to this day, don't know.
Maybe they're somebody, you know?
Right.
I mean, everybody's somebody. But I just remember being like really high in this recording studio in Manhattan somewhere and looking at the keyboard player, and it looked like he had sold his soul. Like you're saying, it's like I declined. They offered me to be a religious figure and I declined.
Right.
You know, make that deal with the devil kind of thing. And this guy had made the deal with the devil, and like he still wasn't very good.
Yeah, interesting.
And I was like, man, you blew it. You blew it on that deal, man.
You had the offer, you had the chance, and you
like you sort of you shorted yourself. You should have asked for more.
Right. Wild.
But,
I wonder who they were. I wonder what band that was.
Yeah.
That's a funny experience. Wow.
Yeah, indeed. You want to tell us like about like another vignette, maybe like another like powerful psychedelic experience that sort of changed your life or changed your mind or helped you work through something or helped you be sort of, you know, uber creative in a new way?
Yeah, I mean, after, well, there's a couple that come to mind. One is like kind of after I saw, I ended up after those 3 nights at the Miami Arena, which doesn't even exist anymore, but after 3 nights at the Miami Arena, seeing the Grateful Dead and being kind of like steeped in that whole thing, one of the nights I was able to procure a decent amount of really pure acid from some older hippie guy. And
that's where it comes from.
Yeah. I had no idea who he was, but he kept calling me little brother. Hey, little brother. You know, it was so great. And I ate little bits of that. It wasn't perforated. It was just like a index card. And so I just cut little pieces off and nibble on them daily. And then on the weekends, I would cut bigger pieces off. And, you know, again, this is like 8th, 9th grade. And it was so ridiculous. But when I finally, point to this is I finally ran out of that like family, you know, acid and got some from a friend's older brother, and it just was drastically different. I was used to eating chunks this big of the index card and being blissed out and laying down and being able to see these beautiful patterns and kind of like get into that matrixy thing where it felt like, you know, you unzipped the veil and you could kind of see the real stuff going on. And then I ended up taking a big chunk of whatever this new stuff that I got from my friend's older brother, and it got dark fast, and things were dripping and melting, and I couldn't see. If I looked at something, it would just melt. Any object would literally just like a time-lapse candle wax, just, you know what I mean? And I couldn't, no matter how many times I shook my head and rubbed my eyes and like tried to see clearly, I just couldn't. And it really scared the shit out of me. You know, it was like I'd never really experienced hallucinations on that level before. And, you know, I had all these Grateful Dead posters and all the skulls and roses, and they were all looking at me and making these crazy faces and popping in and out of the posters on my wall. And it was bad, man. I mean, it was like, I just had never really experienced that side of it before. And it totally freaked me out. And there was a few months there. It took me a few months to like incorporate that experience into not feeling like there was something wrong with me. You know what I mean? It was like, or that I everything that I was seeing was so real and believable. And what ended up coming out of that was, now I pick up this thing that I'm holding, and it's a very solid, you know, wonderful container that holds my water, but I still all the time have this thing in the back of my mind that goes, this isn't real. This could melt at any moment. This could just turn into a puddle of purple on my table right now, because I actually saw that happen. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like it was the drugs, you know, but it was real. It was fucking as real as the thing itself. And what I took from that was, unintentionally took from that, was that things are not, there's more to this physical world than it seems. And so that, I think that really changed me. Like that, like changed me on a deep level in terms of being kind of like having, to me, there's nothing set in stone.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just, it's like everything is fluid and everything is melty and everything's moving. And then you start looking at like actual like quantum mechanics, and it proves that, you know what I mean? On a very molecular level, there's proof that that is true. But having that experience really messed me up in the sense that, like, as a young kid, the entire foundation of reality and of things that exist in my hands could just turn into a puddle and drip through my hands. And it just changed me, you know?
Is there anything that you found that you did to kind of take care of yourself in that time to sort of help kind of shore up your sense of reality, your fragile sense of reality?
I think it just took time after that. Right. Honestly, I was a real sensitive kid, and I think it really, like, it just took time away from psychedelics. I remember after that, I felt like, okay, this is, I've been, you know, eating a lot of acid. It's maybe time to find something else. You know what I mean? So I took a break for a while there.
It reminds me of, you know, there are these TV shows or movies where the person has a superpower where they can touch an object and they can know its history and stuff.
Oh, wow, yeah, right.
You know, and then sometimes they'll touch like a murder weapon or something and they'll be like, ah!
They can see that.
And so I relate to what you're saying. And I also sort of, you know, get the sense that, you know, the things that were around, it's like, oh my God, like that, like, why do I have that? Like, that thing's dark. Like, I don't want that around.
Right.
And so, you know, it takes a whole, like, it makes your whole set and setting, like the setting of your environment, take on like a whole new level of meaning.
Exactly. The other thing that was happening a lot to me during that time, I was hanging out. I had like one really, really close friend. He was like my best friend in the world. His name's Eric Cohen. And it was like we would have these one-on-one, just like we'd eat the same whatever, and we could fully communicate telepathically and share hallucinations and share thoughts, you know, and like all of those kind of classic, like, psychedelic experiences I had with this one kid. And we were like so deeply bonded, like, because of that stuff. And it was my first experience being able to look at someone, not even like make a face, just fully be in each other's heads. Like, whatever was separating us was no longer. And we were all just, we were existing in this kind of, you know,
you're out of the boat.
We were out of the boat, floating freely. So that was another kind of profound thing that I was like, wow, this is real. And we could talk about it for months afterwards. Remember the time where we both thought this thing, and then we both saw the thing, and then we both, you know what I mean? And it was like, that shit was real. That wasn't like imaginary.
Now that probably makes you a better communicator on stage.
I never thought about that. I never
like realizing that you're psychic and that you share one mind with somebody.
That's the goal, you know, I mean, being open to that opened me up to the possibility that that's a real thing and that can really happen. And I can experience that myself, not just read about it in some book or hear some other person talk about it. And I really do think that when you're with a group of people and you all ingest, you know, a very similar dose of the same substance, it's like, you know, in music, there's, you know, an equalizer. It's like on any stereo, on anything, you can turn up the bass, you can turn up the treble, you can like equalize the sound how you kind of want it if there's too much bass in the song. And I feel like what that kind of does when everyone kind of is like functioning on that same wavelength, it equalizes everything. It takes the EQ and just flattens it out. So we're all just like on this thing, which allows for that kind of more telepathic communication to happen, I think, more, you know?
Yeah.
Being open to that happening is one thing. Being able to be in it and not go, what the fuck's going on right now? Get me out of here is an entirely different thing, you know?
Well, like Terrence McKenna says, do not give in to astonishment.
Right.
Another way of like, keep your shit together, bro.
Right. Exactly. The technical way of keep your shit together.
So I'm looking at, somebody wrote a comment. Apparently there's a campaign called Play Alligator once the quarantine's over.
Huh.
And so I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to tell you to play Alligator live once the quarantine's over, but I'm curious, you know, one, what are you excited to play once you're playing live for people again? And like, are there venues that you're excited to play again?
Oh man. Yeah. So many. I'm definitely like, I really love playing in Star Kitchen. The band is kind of, you know, because of these experiences I'm talking about, has really kind of opened up, and we've kind of bonded in these ways that I haven't really gotten the opportunity to do with a lot of other bands that I've been in. And there's a lot of like love there in the band. We all generally enjoy each other's company, and, you know, but I really want to get back out with those guys and pick up where we left off, because to me, it was just starting to feel like not only were the gigs getting better and the offers getting better and being able to do things like Jam Cruise or do a Colorado tour or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, we were just starting to be able to do that and really be ourselves and like put ourselves in it. And so, yeah, I'm just really looking forward to seeing how, you know, and everybody in this downtime is practicing something or teaching lessons or improving their musicianship on some level. And so I'm really curious / excited to kind of get back out with those guys and see, you know, it will be a pickup where we left off situation, but we've all grown, you know, in different ways since then. So I'm curious to see the changes that happened over this quarantine. And I know just being on stage, playing music and just feeling that again, I think I'll be surprised if I don't have tears in my eyes. And I'll be surprised if the other guys in the band don't have tears in their eyes. It's like, I know we all miss it terribly. And in terms of the venues, like I was saying before, we were supposed to go to Iceland, man, and we were going to open for Humphreys McGee. Do you know who those guys are?
Yeah. I think I did lights for them once in college.
Really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So we were opening for them for one night and then going to do these after shows. But like the theater that we were supposed to play in over there was this gorgeous, you know, things are just different over there. And it was like it just looked so beautiful. I was really excited to kind of feel what that felt like to play in a place like Iceland. But in terms of like local stuff, Ardmore Music Hall, I live 5 minutes from Ardmore Music Hall.
That's like your home base.
It's my home base, man, and I love it there so much. I love all the people who work there so much. It's become my home base, you know. And,
I mean, it's really changed, you know, but back in the day when it was 23 East and stuff like that, like it's really kind of been upgraded quite a bit.
A lot. Even in the last couple of years, it's been significantly upgraded. And I think there's this dude, Chris Perella, who is a part owner and books most of the shows there, really is an integral part in just the music scene in Philly, surrounding areas in general. And he knows what's up. He's not just trying to like make as much money as he can. And he knows that like their bands coming in there, having a great experience also perpetuates the success of the venue. Yeah. It's not just about ticket sales and about how to make money. It's about a community and supporting this community, and it's beautiful. And you know, it's like places like Terrapin Crossroads, and you know what I mean. There's a handful of really special venues across the country.
One of the things that's nice about like Terrapin is, you know, I'll be there on, you know, a given Wednesday, and Phil will be playing in the bar for free with his alembic bass, and there'll be like some guy from Michigan who was in the city for like a paper, like he's in the paper business, you know, and he's like in town for like a conference, and he just rides up to see what's happening, and he gets to see Phil play 3 feet away from him.
Totally.
And the guy's a bass player. And so like he gets to like look at this bass that's sort of like this top of the line custom crazy, and the guy is just like, what did I walk into?
Yeah.
It's really nice.
That place is unbelievable. You know, the three different venues in one. You get the outside, you get the great room, and then the bar. Right. And all three of them I haven't played outside yet, but I've seen a few Phil and Friends shows there. And just what like a fucking cool experience, man. Like, it's just everything about it. The sound, the hospitality, the food is ridiculously good. I mean, it's everything. I can't think of one aspect of that place that's like, oh, they could have done this better. Right. You know, it's just amazing. And getting to play with Phil there was, you know, just.
Tell us about that a little bit. Experience.
Yeah. Krasno, you know, Eric Krasno, who's been in Phil and Friends and his work is really tight with the whole Terrapin Family Band crew, and an amazing guitar player and songwriter. I was in his band for a few years, two and a half years. And because him and Phil are tight, Phil sat in with us. You know, we played 2 nights there. At one point, he sat in second set both nights, standing literally right kind of behind me. And the first thing I really noticed about him musically was as many Grateful Dead bootlegs as I listened to, as many videos as I'd watched, all, you know, sound is kind of like embedded in my brain.
Sure.
I still couldn't believe how good his bass sounded in that room, man.
Right.
It was like, it doesn't come through on recordings. It just doesn't, man. It's like the definition of every single note, like his amps, the bass, whatever, like his fingers, whatever it is, man. It was the most. You hear him play a lot of high notes, which is very untraditional for, you know, a lot of bass players. It's like bass is low notes and low frequency, and he plays a lot of weird stuff, man. And it's like, but it never on stage, it never felt, even when he was doing all the high note stuff, it never felt like it lost that low end. It like, It was the most full spectrum bass tone I've ever heard in my life. And it was legitimately like, it was amazing. It was just amazing sound wise, you know, and then he's a sweetheart on top of it, which is really nice.
Which is nice. You know, and speaking of which, that reminds me that we should give a shout out to Deadhead Land, who's hosting our show. And, you know, many of you probably know Deadhead Land because they streamed a lot of live shows from Terrapin back when that was a thing. And so you'd go to shows and you would always see Brian way up front with his camera, also in a position of service leadership. Right, serving the community by bringing the music to people all across the world. And so I do want to encourage people to follow Deadhead Land and join their Patreon, and, you know, support Brian, who does, you know, most of this out of a labor of love. And, you know, he's a body worker, so he's out of work too right now.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And so he's been doing a lot just to kind of support the musicians, doing several shows every day on the Facebook page. And he's given us this opportunity to like have these conversations as well.
So cool. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. And so speaking of, while we're doing like shout outs, do you want to like plug your stuff? Do you have a Patreon? Do you have like a donate button? Do you have things people can buy?
Man, I really Star Kitchen does. Star Kitchen has, I think if you go on our website, which is starkitchenband.com, we're doing this merch sale right now just to try to generate any kind of sales. That really helps any band that you're into. If you feel like supporting all you people out there, if you feel like supporting a band, try buying some of their merch or even just streaming their stuff on Spotify. You know, you don't make much money from that, but it helps. Like even just getting those numbers up helps. Go like their Facebook page, like the Instagram page. But I teach guitar lessons through Mark Brownstein, the bass player in Star Kitchen, the Disco Biscuits. He started this like platform for musicians kind of in our scene. It's called Live Lesson Masters. And there are so many amazing musicians on this platform teaching. There's also yoga teachers and chefs, and like he's kind of expanded it to be this much more broad teaching platform. And it's also just kind of a cool way to connect. Like if you're a huge On Freeze McGee fan, there's the dudes from On Freeze McGee. You can book a lesson with them. If you're a Disco Biscuits fan, you can book a lesson with any of the guys in that band. And I'm on there too.
Right on. So that's Live Lesson Masters.
Live Lesson Masters. I think it's livelessonmasters.com. But yeah, I teach guitar lessons here and there. It's kind of like, it's really fun to connect with people who are interested in like learning what I'm kind of about musically a little bit, you know?
Sure.
It's cool. It's really fun.
Right on. Now, is there anything before, we're at about an hour, which I value greatly. Thank you for spending an hour with me. It was super fun.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Is there anything that you feel like you didn't get to say, or any like last thoughts that you want to share with the people?
I have a couple. First and foremost, I would like to thank anyone who's kind of come out to see me or any of, my friends / amazing musicians play anywhere in the country over the last decade or two. You know what I mean? Like supporting live music is just such a, I think we're all kind of realizing how special it is, in this time. Is one of those you don't know what you got until it's gone kind of situations.
Right.
And, the support and the like, the community, the support really, just the support. I'm not necessarily financial, just like, like just being there, being in a room with supporting a musician, smiling at them, giving them energy while they're on stage. Anyone who knows about that, who does that actively, thank you. Just thank you for doing that,
That's sweet.
For me and for all of us. It really makes it. Even if it's just one dude or one woman, standing there smiling, it makes such a huge difference to us on stage. Right. And so that's one thing. And the other thing is I just can't wait to get back out there and start playing music for people, man. I really can't wait. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be beautiful.
That's amazing. Well said. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for having me.
Indeed. Just a little outro. This has been Instrumental Breakthroughs, psychedelic origin stories of your favorite rock and roll superheroes. We have a Patreon too under Tam Integration, and an Instagram, it's Tam Integration, and so on and so forth. Please feel free to reach out. Let us know how you like the episode. If you're a musician, reach out and maybe we can do a thing. And thank you, Mr. Mayer.
Thanks for having me, brother.
All right, be well.
Really appreciate it, man.
Indeed. Many blessings.
All right. You too, brother.